And there's also a French narrator that sounds a lot like Jacques Cousteau, and now we see the beautiful manta ray as he swims. And Jacques Cousteau is a great hero of Steve Hillenburg's, and rather than have the usual kind of booming stentorian narrator that you'd see on a cartoon, we decided to have the action occasionally be moved along by this really, flatliner Jacques Cousteau type guy. 3 days later, we find SpongeBob SquarePants, and it's just kind of bizarre choice. And then there's an on-camera kiddie show host that occasionally appears in live action on the show,
named Patsy the Pirate. That is also me, who's got like this sort of chintzy, cheap kids show where he shows SpongeBob cartoons.
So when I see that character, I am seeing you.
That's me. Well, you're seeing me with like a patch and a beard
and a wig,
hat,
maybe,
and a wig, definitely a wig, and a wooden leg often, which doesn't work and is hard to move around in. And actually, after the first couple of patches, we got rid of the wooden leg. But yeah, Patchy's a fun character to do because he's based on that local kiddie show host that we all had in our hometown in the '60s. That showed Popeye cartoons and Betty Boop cartoons and whatnot. That everybody had that guy. In my hometown of Syracuse, New York, it was Salty Sam. He had a show called Salty Sam's Showboat, and he was a sailor character that showed Popeye cartoons and would hold up drawings that kids sent in, and it was just this neat vanished world of kid programming that's not around anymore in the ultra slick current day, and everybody that we talked to on the show had that guy in their hometown, or that type of guy, and who was also usually the weatherman on the station, and also would put a hunch in his back and host the monster movie on Saturdays, and did the bowling for dollars on weeknights. It was, those days were really great.
So, what were the cartoons you grew up with on Salty Sam's?
Oh, man, I was obsessed with Popeye the Sailor Man as a kid. I think, 6 or 7 Halloweens in a row, I was Popeye the Sailor Man, which, is a pitch that probably would not fly now. You go into the big Cartoon Network and go, okay, he's a sailor, and his eye has been poked out, and he likes to punch people. What do you think, But...
Oh, and the real thing is he eats spinach.
He eats spinach, and then he gets strong, and this enables him to punch people harder and beat them up more completely. What do you think? But it was Popeye the Sailor Man, and it was a particular honor for me when SpongeBob and Popeye shared a cover of TV Guide, as they did a series of covers featuring the top 50 cartoon characters ever, and they had a cover drawing that was Popeye the Sailor Man drawing his anchor up out of the water, and it's caught on SpongeBob's underwear, and he's just kind of hanging off the anchor looking at Popeye. It was a weird kind of, I don't know, like full circle cosmic moment for me.
So when you were a kid and you loved Popeye, did you do the Popeye voice and that kind of Popeye mumble that he's always doing as he's walking and thinking?
I loved that. Yeah, that thing that Jack Mercer, the voice of Popeye, he was Popeye for 80 years or something. He was incredible. And I also loved the the Looney Tunes, Bugs and Daffy, of course, and Bullwinkle and Rocky were huge for me, and even those early Hanna-Barbera cartoons like Yogi Bear and Huckleberry Hound and Top Cat, they had, even when the animation was fairly limited, the voice work was really great. And from a really early age, I was conscious of the fact that there were grown men whose job it was to help bring these things to life, and it seemed like a really fun job to me. I had an aunt, a very hep aunt, who, when I was a kid, gave me a bunch of Stan Freberg record albums, like History of the United States and all that, and they had little biographies of the voice actors on the back of the album, like Stan Freberg, June Foray, Dawes Butler, people like that, and they were amazing. I was very aware that there was a guy named Mel Blanc whose name was on every cartoon, but pre-internet, in the pre-internet world, it was kind of hard to find out about that stuff. You had to sort of feel your way around, but that only made it more kind of mysterious. I liked to, I don't know, I felt like there was this whole hidden world of cartoons and voice acting that needed to be uncovered by me.
So did you have a sense when you were a kid that you wanted to be a voice actor?
I did, yeah, I did. And by the time I was a teenager, it was firmly in place. In fact, one of my best friends from first grade on is the comedian Bobcat Golthwait. And we met in first grade and are still close at 42 years old or whatever. And he reminded me recently of a conversation that he and I had in high school, like just kind of walking around your hometown where there's no show business and playing this game of whose career do you want? If you could have anybody's career in show business, who would you want? And this was probably 76 or 78. And Bob reminded me of this conversation we had where he said John Belushi and I said Mel Blanc. And he said, "Wow, isn't that weird that you sort of did it. You're doing the same kind of work that Mel Blanc did." And I said, "Yeah, that is weird. Like I wanted to be an astronaut, and I kind of got to go up in space a couple of times. It's cool."
I don't know how Bobcat Goldthwait still manages to have a voice because the voice that he does sounds like it would just rip up your vocal cords.
Yeah, I know. I don't either. He has vocal cords of steel. He is more than human. But yeah, we met in first grade. We went to the same Catholic school, but we were in separate first grades. And the first time I became aware of Bob was when the nun that taught his classroom just dragged him by the ear into the nun that taught my classroom, and his nun was crying. And she just threw him into the classroom and said, "I can't take him anymore, sister. You have to. This Goldthwait boy." And I said, "Whoa, I have to get to know this boy who can make a grown nun cry." It was really bizarre. And so he was the only other kid that had an interest in that left field kind of, stand up and sketch comedy. And when SCTV came on the air, it totally blew our minds. And we went to see Andy Kaufman perform in Syracuse when we were, and it was cool to have another person who was into that stuff, so you knew that you weren't crazy. Because again, now a kid can get on the internet and just immediately be in touch with how many hundreds of like-minded square pegs, but
It wasn't that way back in the 70s. We had to find other nerds to talk to. Ourselves.
There's one really funny memory I have. Bob was the quintessential fat kid that was the class clown, and I was the quintessential shy, skinny kid who didn't have the guts to be class clown, but considered himself the class clown's head writer. Hey, try this during math class, Bob. It'll work for you. That's a good sound. Try that one. But, I have a great memory of us in gym class, and they were picking teams for basketball. And, of course, Bob and I were both just hopeless at sports and, funny as a defense mechanism, that old chestnut. And it came down, they were picking teams, and everyone got picked except Bob and myself and this little girl who had a hook for a hand. And Bob and I just look at each other, and the captain of the other team says, "I'll take Susie." And the girl with the hook for the hand walked over to play hoops. And Bob and I just looked at each other and just started laughing. These fourth graders just laughing our heads off at how stupid and hopeless we were. Even now, I can't explain how perfect that moment was, where it's just you and your other nerdy friend and the girl with the hook, and the girl with the hook goes off to play basketball, and they're going, "Yeah, Tom and Bob, it doesn't really matter what team they're on. They're just there to make us laugh anyway."
How did you break into voice work?
Fortuitously, I was doing stand-up one night at the now defunct Improv in Santa Monica, and there was a person from Nickelodeon and also a person from what was then Hanna-Barbera in the audience, and they both approached me the same night and said, it was a showcase, and they said, "Geez, have you ever thought about doing animated voices for cartoons?" And I said, maybe every day of my life, perhaps. Where do I sign? And it was great. I really felt like, once I did the first couple of them, the first one or two were extremely terrifying, and then I felt like I had just found this suit that fit me so well. It was like, wow, this is what I was looking for.